On a clear Tuesday morning, September 11, 2001, New York City bustled under a cloudless sky. Suddenly, American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. 17 minutes later, United Airlines Flight 175 struck the South Tower. The world realized this was no accident, it was a deliberate attack. In Washington, D.C., American Airlines Flight 77 hit the Pentagon. United Airlines Flight 93 crashed in Pennsylvania after passengers fought back. The Twin Towers collapsed, leaving the nation in shock and grief. Nearly 3,000 people died: office workers, first responders, and passengers. The attacks were traced to al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden. Bin Laden, a wealthy Saudi, had declared jihad against America. Al-Qaeda's hatred for the U.S. fueled this act of terror. The sense of safety was shattered. America was united in grief and anger. The world demanded answers and justice. The attacks marked a turning point, changing the course of history. The U.S. faced a new enemy and a new kind of war. The question was no longer if, but how America would respond. The world watched as the U.S. prepared for action. The path forward was uncertain, but the resolve was clear. The events of that day would lead directly to war. The U.S. quickly identified Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda as the masterminds behind 9/11s. Bin Laden was hiding in Afghanistan, protected by the Taliban. The Taliban, a hardline Islamic group, refused to hand him over. President George W. Bush issued an ultimatum: surrender bin Laden, and shut down terrorist camps. The Taliban refused, claiming lack of evidence and offering only a trial in Afghanistan. The U.S. saw this as a stalling tactic. The refusal made the Taliban an enemy alongside al-Qaeda. The world watched as diplomacy failed. The U.S. recalled past al-Qaeda attacks, the embassy bombings and USS Cole. Bin Laden had long been a threat, but now he was public enemy number one. The Taliban's choice sealed their fate. War became inevitable. The U.S. prepared for military action. The world braced for conflict. The stage was set for a new kind of war. The decision was clear: there would be no distinction between terrorists and those who harbored them. The U.S. would act, with or without international support. The countdown to war had begun. The world would soon witness America's response. The era of the war on terror was about to begin. Afghanistan's history is marked by conflict, earning it the name the Graveyard of Empires. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded, sparking a decade-long war with Afghan Mujahideen, secretly backed by the U.S. After the Soviets withdrew in 1989, civil war erupted among rival factions. From this chaos, the Taliban emerged in the mid-1990s, promising order through strict Islamic law. Many Afghans, weary of war, initially welcomed them. By 1996, the Taliban controlled most of Afghanistan, imposing harsh rules and isolating the country. Women were banned from work and school. Public executions became common. In this environment, Osama bin Laden found sanctuary. The Taliban and al-Qaeda shared extremist ideologies. Afghanistan became a safe haven for terrorist training camps. Al-Qaeda planned global attacks from Afghan soil. The Taliban's decision to shelter bin Laden would have dire consequences. The U.S. would soon bring its military might to Afghanistan. The stage was set for a global confrontation. On October 7, 2001, the U.S. launched Operation Enduring Freedom. Airstrikes targeted Taliban defenses and al-Qaeda camps. The goal: destroy al-Qaeda and remove the Taliban from power. The U.S. partnered with the Northern Alliance. Afghan fighters opposed to the Taliban. American special forces provided weapons, training, and air support. The Taliban's outdated forces quickly crumbled. City after city fell. Kabul was captured in November. The Taliban regime collapsed faster than expected. Afghans celebrated newfound freedoms. By December, the last Taliban stronghold had fallen. The U.S. and allies achieved their initial objectives. But key leaders, bin Laden and Mullah Omar, escaped. They vanished into the mountains along the Pakistan border. What seemed like a quick victory was only the beginning. The war was far from over. The invasion's main goal was justice for 9/11s. But the Bush administration expanded the mission into a global war on terror. Afghanistan was just the first front. The U.S. aimed to deter any nation from supporting terrorists. Afghanistan's strategic location made it a geopolitical prize. A stable, pro-American government could shift regional power. Economic interests like potential energy pipelines played a role. A secure Afghanistan could open routes for Central Asian resources. The war was also framed as a fight for democracy and human rights. The Taliban's brutality, especially toward women, demanded change. The mission grew from counterterrorism to nation-building. The US and NATO sought to create a modern, democratic state. This idealistic goal proved far more complex than anticipated. The war's purpose kept expanding, making victory harder to define. The initial victory in Afghanistan was swift and decisive. The Taliban were ousted and al-Qaeda's safe haven was destroyed. A new government was installed and international aid poured in. But the sense of triumph was short-lived. The US faced a choice: leave or stay to rebuild. Choosing to stay transformed the mission into nation-building. The goals became broader and less clear. Key enemies, including bin Laden, had escaped and regrouped in Pakistan. The Taliban launched an insurgency using guerrilla tactics. The war shifted from quick victory to a grinding conflict. Corruption and instability plagued the new Afghan government. The reasons for war faded as the conflict dragged on. The US and its allies faced a complex, evolving struggle. The promise of a quick win was replaced by a long, uncertain war. The next chapter would test America's resolve and redefine its mission.